Hi everyone, my name's Abigail. I'm a therapist, counsellor, and a psychic medium. And today I'm going to talk about how to manage teens who may be presenting with mental health or behaviours that are not really what you'd be wanting to see. So, first of all, let's get back to basics. In my book, not being condescending to teens, but teens are a lot like 2-year-olds. They're trying to find their identity, they're separating from you. They're trying to learn who they are in the world and where their limits are and what they can do. So they're pushing boundaries, and you want your teen to be pushing boundaries. Just as your little one, you want them to push boundaries because it's a sign of healthy development. But what your role is to hold those boundaries, just as the little one. You hold the boundaries because it provides safety, because the child learns how far they can go and before the boundary is there. So I hope that makes sense, because if you have little ones and you don't give them boundaries, then they become anxious because they can't contain themselves. They don't know what the rules are. They don't know how far they can go. They don't know the expected behavior. So this is why it's so important to have boundaries and rules and allow children, especially teens and little ones, when they push against that boundary and they have a meltdown and they have to get themselves back, you've got to let them do it, because that's how they build their resilience. So it's really important when your child's having a meltdown to let them have a meltdown and understand that what they're not able to do in that moment is to regulate their nervous system because the emotion is too big. So that goes for teens and little ones. So with teens, what we get is they'll usually isolate. They also get angry. They also run away. They do all these things. The other thing that reminds me of why teens, it's such a massive transition, just like your little ones, is because if they're quiet, they're probably up to something, maybe. So you've got to check on them a lot as well and let them know you're there. One thing that I will say about teens and little ones is don't step out of parenting. Don't step out. Like, there's a bit of a thing. Sometimes I work with parents who go, oh, they're teenagers, they don't need me anymore, they're self-sufficient, they don't need me. That could not be further from the truth. Their brain is going through a massive pruning and development, and it's so important that you keep the safety of the home, the family, as a safety net for them. Like, you know, I just believe there's so much to be said. Like, we know teens come and go and do whatever they want and wander around a lot and, you know, push boundaries, but keep the meals happening, keep dinner cooking, keep like making food, putting the breakfast on the table, because you want to give them information through their senses that feeds them comfort and goodness and safety and support. And what you also want to provide at the same time is rules and expectations, because they're not able to have high expectations of themselves sometimes, unless it's some type of mental health or emotional issue. So you need to be the one doing that for them, with them, and guiding them. So teens, the first thing is never step out of teens. Never step out. Now, if you've got teens who are neurodivergent, or they've got some mental health that you know is going on, this is what I want to talk about today. So the first thing is, it's super important that that does not become their identity. I think as parents, it becomes really worrying when you see that your child is not doing or behaving in ways that other children are. But I also think it's really important that you don't make it their story. Like, and how do you do that? Well, you don't talk about it in front of them excessively. You don't talk to other people about that, about them. You don't point it out and give it a lot of attention and make medical appointments super important. You go back to who they are as a child. And I know it's tricky, but I mean, one of the things that we do a lot with traumatized children is we encourage parents to talk. That child, the most important thing is that child, when they've had any type of trauma or attachment disorder, disruption, is that they know they're on your mind when you're not there. Because when you're there, they can see you, they know you're there. So one of the ways you can do that is, so say another adult comes into the room, you can go, oh, guess what this one did today, blah 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 blah, and talk about something they did well in front of them to another adult. It really builds children. And so the thing with teens is, if you're going to talk to other people about their diagnosis in front of them, you're at risk of that becoming their story. So just be mindful of that, because what you want to do is encourage them to be all their strengths and to have resilience to overcome their challenges. So here's a few key things let's talk about. Whenever you get the opportunity, use and talk about their strengths. What is it that this child has a uniqueness about? Are they really funny? Have they got good style? What is it that is uniquely them? Not what you want them to have, but what they admire about themselves. Or because you want to build this child, you want to build them up, and one of the ways you can do that is encouraging that. You can notice it, you can take an interest, you can have conversations, you can involve them in the problem solving. So say, for example, your child has a really good eye for colour and you're changing up the lounge room. Ask for their advice and name it. Go, you know what? You're really good at this. Can you give me some advice, what you think? And they might need a bit of encouragement, but that, or sort of, if you can get a boy and go, I've noticed you're really good at problem solving. I've got a problem with my bike. Can you come and have a look at it for me or with me? And let me know if you think it's something I can fix, or I can call them bike mechanic. Give them opportunities to show their strengths, because what you want to do is that functioning part of them that is beautiful and whole and real. That's not the mental health diagnosis or the neurodivergence. Let's encourage that and build upon that. And the number one person in this world to do that is you as the parent. So take every opportunity to acknowledge your child's challenges, strengths, sorry, to acknowledge their strengths and put them into practice in the home. Like, identify what it is they're good at, identify what it is, and build upon that, and acknowledge that they have that skill, and acknowledge it to the siblings. One of the things, I used to do this with my lot, because I have 5, is to say, if we had a problem, I say, you know what, we'll ask the oldest one. She's really good at planning and problem solving. We'll ask her advice first. But then, this one's strong, so this one can build whatever we need. And then this one's funny, so let's get them to pick out the entertainment. And it doesn't mean that the child just becomes that. It means that, you don't want to overdo it, and so they think that's the only skill they have. But you do want to acknowledge the strengths, or I would send one child off to another. You've got a problem with that? That one over there is really good at problem solving. Go ask her about that, because she would probably have a better idea than me. They may or may not, but it's good to give those messages so that the siblings and the other people in the family know what strengths that child has as well. And, keep the areas of life that are impacted by their disorder or their diagnosis, whatever it might be, keep them low down. Like, don't give them as much attention as maybe, you might be tempted to, because you want to understand it, you want to process it, you want to get support with it. One of the other things, so there's that. Have expectations of teens. Don't allow them, because they've got a diagnosis, to step out of what would be a reasonable expectation. No, you don't get to step out of homework. No, you can do it in a different way, but you don't get to step out. No, you don't get to step out of work experience because you've got anxiety. Well, how are you going to do it? How are we going to do it differently? And I think that sometimes what you can do is, when they're having one of their symptoms, the anxiety or whatever, build in strategies within the home that are standard, and kind of acknowledge that they've said it, but stick to the expectation. Like, okay, so you've got anxiety, but it's work experience time. We know that it's work experience time and that you've got anxiety, and that might make it a bit more scary. Let's just find a way to make this work. What are you thinking we could do? And just keep with your expectations, they will go through every emotion and every, take you around the block and all the rest of it because they struggle to contain. And look, you've got to gauge your own child, but I think wherever possible, stick to having expectations of your child and acknowledge when they've made steps towards it, because what I've noticed working with kids for decades is that even the oppositional ones, it's quite often, and this is quite common with ADHD kids too, is they will have some type of oppositional reaction when you ask something. And there's a tendency for you as a parent to go, oh, okay, they've said this. Or like, say, for example, you say, okay, we're all going out today. It's time to get in the car. And they'll say, no, I'm not getting in the car. Their initial response is quite often because they lack trust and the ability to always transition well, is to be oppositional and or appears oppositional. In that case, I would just say, okay, so you've got like 5 minutes left and then we'll all be in the car. And they might say, oh, I'm not doing it. And then, leave them. Stay really calm, come back, there's 3 minutes now and then we're all going to be in the car. And there's 2 minutes and, the reason we're all getting in the car is because speak slowly, because it goes to different parts of the brain. The child can hold the information better. Keep going. Don't buy into stories about, oh, I'm not doing it because of this. And no, if it's really important, you need to get them in the car, then you stay on your story. It's really important we all get in the car. I'll be waiting for you out there. Because what you're doing is you're not getting involved with their anxiety. You're allowing them to embed a clear instruction and you're having an expectation. So let's just round that up for today. I think it's really important to focus on your child's strengths away from any diagnosis and have expectations of them. Now, you might say, oh, but my child has ADHD and they never follow any direction. I can tell you something about ADHD. The biggest problem with ADHD is people don't always understand exactly how if you've got ADHD, it's more than likely, it's in my opinion 100%, they've got some type of processing of information issue. But what makes that worse and what makes that really impacting upon the family and the dynamics is anxiety. And the reason anxiety comes about is because they can't contain. So you as the adult, you have to contain for them. Otherwise, they end up holding all this emotion. So by doing simple, clear strategies and being calm, always be calm. And if you can't be calm, it's okay, but get support so you can be calm, because you don't want to buy into the lack of containment. You're parenting here. You're not letting them grow up by themselves. You're actually parenting. You're not over-parenting, but you're parenting and you're giving reasonable guidelines. So you're going to, with your child with mental health or any type of substance risk, start being clear on what the expectations are. Start building on their strengths. Don't make that their identity and don't buy into those cycles. I hope that makes sense. I'll do more videos on this, but if you have any questions, please put them below. And if you'd like a session on how to parent, strategies, how to problem solve, how to be calm, like, it's a big thing because quite often parents get triggered. So one of the things that I do in my sessions, which I think is really, really valuable, is I help parents work through the triggers, which means it's not just acknowledging that you have a trigger, it's actually unpacking it, finding the emotion, where did it come from in your life, and releasing it so that you can be stronger, and then giving you strategies and homework. Sorry, I give homework. For you to be able to be strong and parent this child like they need and not be at risk of stepping out when it gets too hard, because that's the risk for us, when it gets really, really hard trying to contain someone else who's out of control. There's this fight, freeze that comes in and you want to just step out. But I hope that all makes sense. Please, I'll leave my details below and get in contact if you need to. Thank you.